I understand the honourable member for Griffith is seeking my indulgence.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. If I could make some remarks to the chamber.
Yeah. The member for Griffith.
Mr Deputy Speaker, there comes a time in our lives as parliamentarians when our families finally say enough is enough. My family has reached just such a time. We ask much of our families in this place, and in the case of my family, well above and way beyond the call of duty. The truth of this place is that the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, which regrettably have become part of the stock and trade for so many of us in public life, hit home to our families as well. This applies particularly to the families of our parliamentary leaders. For our family, recent statements since the September election have been particularly hurtful. As parliamentarians, we might say we become— oh, thank you for that. If you've got any gin, I'll have some of that too. As parliamentarians, we might say we become inured to all of this, although I doubt it. For our families, however, I believe it becomes harder, not easier, with the passing of the years, and it affects their ability to get on building their own lives and careers as well. My family have given their all for me in public life. And for the nation. And it's now time I gave something back to them. This has been the product of much soul-searching for us as a family over the last several months. And the decision that I have made has not been taken lightly, particularly given the deep attachment I have for the community I've proudly represented in this place these last 15 years. But for me, my family is everything, always has been, always will be, which is why I will not be continuing as a member of this parliament beyond this week. I also believe, Deputy Speaker, it was right and proper that I report my decision to the parliament at the earliest opportunity. And that day is today. And I've chosen to do so now to create minimal disruptions to the normal proceedings of the House. My predecessors as Prime Minister, Prime Ministers Whitlam, Fraser, Hawke and Keating, reached similar decisions to leave the parliament before the subsequent election, as did would-be Prime Ministers Costello and Downer. Perhaps Prime Minister Howard would have done the same had he retained the seat of Bennelong, although we'll never know. I wish to thank my local community, the good burghers of Griffith, for electing me to this place. They are very good people, and they are a great community. And I'm proud of their new libraries, their classrooms and multi-purpose facilities we've built in each and every one of my local primary schools, and the hundreds of new laptops in high schools, which before had none or very few. And I just love the smiles on the kids' faces and on their teachers' faces as I visit them, and schools like them right across Australia. I would also like to thank the people of Australia for electing me as their Prime Minister. To have served as Prime Minister of Australia has been a great honour afforded to very few in our country's history. For the future, I wish the Prime Minister and his government well. I do that because I wish Australia well. The Prime Ministership of this Commonwealth is not easy. It is the hardest job in the land. The expectations whoever holds the office are infinite, while the resources available are finite. And so I wish Tony, his wife Margie and their family all the best for the rigours of high office that inevitably lie ahead. This is a good country. Australians are by instinct a very good people. The rest of the world, more often than we perhaps think, also look to us to help provide answers to the challenges facing humankind, not just tending to our own. And so too, I would wish my good friends the Treasurer and the Foreign Minister, wherever she happens to be, all the very best for the complex global challenges that lie ahead. As I do, my good friend, the member for Wentworth, where is he? Who remains a particular adornment to the Parliament. For the Australian Labor Party, the party of which I have been a proud member for the last 30 years or more, and a parliamentary member for 15, the future of Australian progressive politics lies within your hands. I wish the newly elected leader, Bill Shorten, all the best in the great task that lies ahead. Having served as Leader of the Opposition myself, this is never a position for the faint-hearted. There are always, Bill, long dark nights of the soul. But believe it or not, morning does come, often sooner than you think. Bill brings great strengths to the position. I have every confidence he will lead Labor's return to the Treasury benches. I also wish to thank Albo for his extraordinary service as Deputy Prime Minister and Leader of the House. Albo is the most formidable parliamentarian in this place, as is recognised on both sides of the chamber. He also has a passionate commitment to the cause of progressive politics. In my long years in this House, his loyalty has been beyond reproach. I'd also thank Chris Bowen for his great contribution to our party and government, and his future contribution as well. It is a singular honour to serve in the high office of Prime Minister of Australia. I have in the past few days looked at my first speech in this place, back in 1998. You'll all be pleased to know that none of us have changed one bit since then. I said back then that I believed politics was about power, and whether that power was for the few or the many. 15 years later, that remains my view. I said back then that I believed in the politics of hope, not in the politics of fear. 15 years later, that remains my view because, as Martin Luther King famously remarked, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. I also said way back then that I had no interest in being here for the sake of being here, and that the only point of being here was to make a difference for the benefit of all. 15 years later, that remains my view as well. In fact, I found nothing that I would change from my first speech all those years ago. I set out to achieve many things as Prime Minister. In some of these I succeeded, in others I did not. Such is the nature of politics. But when the history is one day written detached from the passions of our time, perhaps it will be remembered that we did navigate Australia through the worst global economic crisis since the Depression, without a recession, without the scourge of mass unemployment. A terrible thing when you see it in Europe today. And with our AAA credit ratings intact. It may also be remembered that we helped establish the G20 as the premier institution of global economic governance, as well as securing Australian membership of it. That we ratified Kyoto because we believe in the reality of climate change, and we acted on our commitments to reduce carbon emissions. And that we brought into being Australia's first ever national curriculum, our first ever paid parental leave scheme, the biggest age pension increase in our history. And that as a nation we finally delivered an official apology to Aboriginal Australians. Yeah. Deputy Speaker, nothing has brought me greater joy in political life than the smiles I have seen on the faces of our Aboriginal brothers and sisters, young and old, country and city, as a result of the apology. I hope, though, that what we've achieved through some healing of the soul will be the first step. The second, of course, is closing the gap to achieve a healing of broken bodies as well. It was also my privilege to be asked by my parliamentary colleagues, including Bill and Albo and Chris, to return to the Prime Ministership earlier this year. This too was not a task for the faint-hearted. I was glad that together we were able to, as they say in the classics, save the furniture. In fact, I think, do considerably better than that. I'm glad that all you folk on the front bench were returned in one piece as well, and that we return Labor as a fighting force for the next election. More importantly, we've also begun the process of reforming the party through the new democratic processes for electing our leader. This was a great experience for our party, but I also believe it's but the first step. Our party must continue to reform and to be the party of the reforming progressive centre of Australian politics, the party of the future economy, of social equity and of environmental sustainability, the party of working people, the party of small business and the party of our local communities, and a fully democratised party where we also see the election of our national conference, our national executive and our Senate candidates through direct democratic election by our party membership. And in time, primaries for our candidates for this House as well, through a shared electoral college of both our party members and our registered supporters. In the meantime, I look forward to a full democratic pre-selection process for all local party members to elect our next candidate for Griffith. Deputy Speaker, for the future, my passion remains with Indigenous reconciliation. And in the year ahead, I plan to establish a National Apology Foundation to keep alive the spirit and substance of the apology that I delivered in this place 6 years ago. I will also continue to support the great causes of homelessness, organ donation and the future of multicultural Australia, including foreign language education and interfaith dialogue. As members of this House will know, in fact members of Senate Estimates Committee will know even better, I am both passionately Australian and passionately a citizen of the world. I intend to be active in the international community in areas where I can make a genuine contribution to peace and stability, global economic governance, and sustainable development, including climate change. In this context, I will also focus on China's future role in the region and the world. As Australia is the voice of the West in the East, in time, I hope, a voice for the East and the West, I believe there is a useful role for Australians to play in an engaged, intelligent and sympathetic bridge between these two hemispheres, between China and the United States in particular, in the challenging half-century that lies ahead. Deputy Speaker, I wish to thank, through you and the clerk, all the parliamentary staff for their unfailing professionalism and friendship all these years. It is they who uphold this great institution, the Parliament. I wish to thank the Australian Public Service as one of our great national institutions, and its professional commitment to the defence of the continuing national interests of our Commonwealth, irrespective of who happens to be the government of the day. I wish also to thank my staff, past and present, Prime Ministerial, Foreign Ministerial and Electoral, for their loyalty, hard work and friendship over the years, and above all, their overriding commitment to Australia. I thank to the press gallery, who are here in such numbers this evening, for their sorry, they're bundied off, for their that's right. I thank too the press gallery for their coverage, both good and bad, and to continue to encourage them to apply all necessary programmatic specificity to the task of holding the government of the day to account. To the members of this Parliament, both friend and foe, and I can confidently say they are spread equally across both sides of the chamber, I thank you for the privilege of working with you. Whatever has been said, and a lot has been said that's hurtful, and over the last 3 years I've chosen not to respond. I bear no one in this place any malice. Life is far too short for that. It is time, however, for the baton unequivocally to be passed to others. For the new members in this place, I wish you well. This Parliament, you know, is a great institution. As members, you will choose what type of parliamentarian you wish to become. It's not preordained. You make the decisions. Whether you become positive or negative, knowledgeable or otherwise, but whatever you choose, and you shape your own future here, I would just say this: be gentle with each other. Be gentle with each other. To my life partner Therese, for enduring 32 years of marriage as of tomorrow, which I think stands close to the established miracles of the Church, to my daughter Jess, her husband Abbott, our beautiful granddaughter Josephine, my son Nick, his wife Zara, and our youngest son Marcus, you mean everything to me. In the days ahead, Therese and I will be spending some time together overseas to plan the next phase of our lives. So I'd ask my good friends in the Fourth Estate to give us a little privacy. as of when I cease being a public figure, and I'm not planning on any interviews anytime soon. Everyone on this side of the House can rest assured. Australia truly is a remarkable country. It's a land of remarkable opportunity. To think that the son of a dairy farmer whose family didn't really have much money could secure a place at university through the Whitlam reforms and upon graduation become a diplomat and then serve as Chief of Staff to a Premier, be elected to the Parliament to represent the Great Australian Labor Party, and ultimately to be elected as Leader of the Party and then as Prime Minister, says everything about how extraordinary this country is. And so, for these remarkable opportunities, I will always be grateful. So thank you, Australia. And so, Deputy Speaker, friends, one and all in this place, Madam Speaker, there's been a transmogrification. Thank you for your presence. And so, having said all of that, on this final occasion in the Parliament, and as is now officially recorded in the classics for occasions such as this, it really is time for me to zip.
I call the Honourable the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a special occasion. The former Prime Minister, the member for Griffith, who has just addressed us, has been a very significant part of this Parliament for the best part of 2 decades, and whether we are on his side of the Parliament or the other side of the Parliament, whether we have been his friends or his foes, or at times both, this is a significant moment in the life of this Parliament. To lose someone who has been one of the big figures in this Parliament and one of the big figures in the life, the public life of our country over the best part of 2 decades. So, as a political opponent, but as someone who has known the member for Griffith quite well for a long time, I salute him and I wish him and his family all the best for the future, and I express my confidence that one way or another he will continue to serve our country, his party. He will continue to support the causes that he believes in, many of which are causes which all of us right around this chamber, right around our country, support as well. The member for Griffiths has just said, rightly, that we are an extraordinary country. We are an extraordinary country, and I hope, Madam Speaker, you will forgive me if I say, in reference to the member for Griffith, that it does take an extraordinary person to lead an extraordinary country. And the member for Griffith won an election which pitted him against the person whom I believe to have been the most successful Prime Minister in modern Australian times, and it takes extraordinary ability, insight, guts and focus to win such a contest. And he didn't just win that contest in 2007, he triumphed. He absolutely triumphed in that contest, and we must pay tribute to someone of such stature who was able to vanquish in fair political fight someone of at least equal stature. So I pay tribute to the member for Griffith tonight for his capacity, for his achievements, for his ability and for his commitment, because a man of his ability, a person of his ability, could do many, many things in this life, but he chose to serve our country as a public servant in Queensland, as a member of this Parliament, as a frontbencher, eventually as a party leader and as a Prime Minister, and we salute that service. We salute that service, sir. Sooner or later, everyone outlives their usefulness. It doesn't matter how well they've done. It doesn't matter how important the cause is that they are serving. Sooner or later, everyone outlives his or her usefulness. It will come to every single member of this House at some point in time that we will have outlived our usefulness, and the wisdom is to know, yes, fair enough, I suppose I invited that observation, but it is the essence of wisdom to know when the time has come to serve one's country and to serve one's ideals in a different capacity. And again, I salute the member for Griffith for appreciating that there are good things that he could have continued to do in this parliament for his party, for our people, for his constituents, but he has decided that he can do better things for all of those important causes elsewhere. It remains only to observe that whatever disagreements the member for Griffith and people on this side of the chamber have had, there were many things to celebrate in his prime ministership, but certainly that which I celebrate most of all, and which I am sure every single member of this House celebrates, is that extraordinary apology on the first day of the parliamentary sitting in 2008. Ancient wrongs were addressed. Ancient injustices were at least in part atoned for, and our country had a unifying and healing moment, the like of which we very, very rarely see. It was a great moment in our history, and to the credit of the member for Griffith, it happened because of him. Much as I admire and appreciate and put on a huge pedestal his immediate predecessor, in this respect at least, his immediate predecessor had lacked the imagination to grasp that opportunity, and the member for Griffith, Kevin, he had the decency to see that here was something that needed to be done. He did it with aplomb, with courage, with decency, compassion and magnanimity. That alone is an extraordinary achievement. That alone is something to crown an amazing public life. So we thank you and we salute you.
I call the Leader of the Opposition.
Madam Deputy Speaker, tonight we've heard the news that the member for Griffiths will be resigning. He has cast a large presence across the national political stage for an extended period of time. He can leave this place with his head held up. As the member for Griffiths, he's been a very active local member, and amongst the many things he's done, he strongly campaigned to represent his residents in terms of their quality of life, in terms of the Brisbane Airport. But as Prime Minister, I think that his most significant achievements will be recorded. The apology, helping steward with Treasurer Wayne Swan the nation through the global financial crisis, putting climate change as a national political issue in terms of the mainstream debate, championing the national broadband network. In terms of both before entering Parliament and during his time as Prime Minister, and indeed as Foreign Affairs Minister, representing Australia with distinction, and in large part our presence on the United Nations Security Council was due to his vision for that post and for Australia's role in the world. He has been the leader of the Labor Party in difficult circumstances for the Labor Party. He has been part of tumultuous debates within our party in the last number of years. But I do think that most fair-minded people will recognise that when he returned to the task of Prime Minister in those weeks before the last election, that most fair-minded people believed at that point his contribution helped mean that the quality of Australian democracy was improved, because although Labor was unsuccessful at the election, I believe that his contribution in terms of improving Labor's electoral fortunes in a range of seats meant that, even though the majority of the Australian people selected the coalition to form the government, that they are well served by having a relatively strong opposition in numbers to be able to help keep the government to account. This is a tumultuous era in Labor, and with the member for Griffith's resignation tonight, part of it comes to a close. I do not believe that we will see his like again in the Australian Parliament. He does have, and even his harshest critics, of which there are some, would say that he does have a special relationship with the Australian people. You could go to any shopping centre in Australia and it is near as close that most politicians will achieve to some degree of above politics celebrity. People like him. He has, for better or for worse, in the digital era, popularised selfies. But I think even more importantly than that, what he said tonight reminds us, I think, of something which we all in this place hold dear. He is putting his family first. His family have lent us Kevin Rudd for the last number of years. And in the harsh battles of politics and the harsh public analysis, I can only but wonder his children, their partners, his wife. They have to read the unkind things that get said as well as the kind things. And in many ways, they have no shield against the unkindness. But what we see tonight, in the words of Kevin Rudd, that he in fact says enough is enough, and it's now time for those who've given so much to him that he will be there for them. So I wish to thank Therese and his family, because they have supported Kevin Rudd in good times and in bad, and now they get their husband and their father and their father-in-law and their grandfather back. I would also just say, in conclusion, that regardless of one's politics, the propositions that Kevin Rudd said at in his first speech and he again articulated tonight are good guides for all of us. That the political debate that he articulated should be about hope, not fear. It should be about the future, not the past, and it should be about an inclusive Australia. On behalf, as Leader of the Opposition, I wish the member for Griffith and his family all the best in the future. Thank you very much.
I call the Honourable the Treasurer.
Madam Speaker, I, like many others in this place, am a little surprised at the speech from the member for Griffith. I suppose many of the new members would have today witnessed the highs and the lows, the darkness and the light of what politics is really about, as we've had it all today in this chamber. But I do know the Kevin Rudd that perhaps many don't know. I have seen the Kevin Rudd that many haven't seen, including sharing semi-nakedness with him in a river in Papua New Guinea. An unforgettable experience, I must say. I just say to the member for Griffith, I think he is in many ways the luckiest guy in Australia. He married a beautiful woman, a very special woman, who has not only been a partner on the journey in politics but also a great supporter, raising 3 magnificent children, and now they are grandparents to someone I know they dearly love. And I suppose your grandchild will reflect on the fact that Grandpa was Prime Minister, and I think she can be well satisfied that her life is better for his contribution to our nation. You know, the member for Griffith has had the extreme experiences of public life over the last few years. It's very few of us that actually get the opportunity to see someone come in as a new member to serve as Prime Minister and to leave. It's very, very rare. But we have witnessed an extraordinary career with great highs, as the Prime Minister recognised, defeating who we believe to be Australia's greatest Prime Minister, an election defeat that was of enormous significance, to having experienced the very deep lows, even at the hand of his own party. But the fact is, he is still a decent man. He deserves all the very best for his future.
Well said.
I call the honourable member for GRAYNDLER.
Thank you, Speaker. I pay tribute to former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd on this very significant day for the Parliament. He is someone who respects our institutions, including this great Parliament, which is why he made the appropriate decision to inform the Parliament here first, giving respect, a lesson for all of us. Others have said that Kevin Rudd led Labor to a historic victory in 2007. That is certainly the case. Having experienced 12 long years of opposition, it was indeed a timely victory for the class of 96, let alone the classes of 98, 2001 and 2004. It is particularly significant for Labor. Labor governed for around about less than 1/3 of the last century. There are only 3 people who have led Labor to government from opposition: Kevin Rudd, Bob Hawke and Gough Whitlam since the Second World War. That is how significant that victory was. And significant because John Howard, whilst I would have a couple of differences with him, was a very formidable Prime Minister and political leader indeed. Kevin Rudd's tenacity and determination on behalf of the Labor cause was something to behold, and explains some of my position around the events of 2010. A position for which I will hold forever, that we should respect our leaders. The apology to Indigenous Australians, the ratification of the Kyoto Protocol as the first act of the Rudd Labor government, the largest ever increase in the age pension, the expansion of affordable housing, action on homelessness, the national broadband network are all part of the Rudd government's legacy. I believe the most significant part, though, is seeing Australia through the global financial crisis. Seeing it through at a time whereby what's regarded by people like Joe Stiglitz as the world's best designed economic stimulus plan, that Treasury estimates kept more than 200,000 Australians in work. That essentially, running the economy is the fundamental objective of government. If you don't do that, then you can't create the space for the social and environmental policies that you would like to do. And for a Labor government, there can be no greater legacy than safeguarding the jobs of Australians. Kevin's greatest foreign policy achievement was his international leadership in elevating the status of the G20 during the GFC. I had the honour of going with Kevin and the Treasurer, Wayne Swan. I went as Infrastructure Minister to that first conference in London. I saw firsthand a great example of an Australian punching way above our weight in terms of the size of our economy, way above our weight, which we do and we should never forget. As a nation with, in the past 200+ years, a European heritage centred in the Asia-Pacific region, the work that Kevin was able to achieve I saw it in the negotiations on the floor, was quite extraordinary, his leadership. It, of course, I have no doubt, played part of the role in terms of Australia securing a position on the United Nations Security Council. His dedication to nation building meant that it was a pretty good time to be the infrastructure minister, because Kevin backed you up, doubling the roads budget, increasing the rail budget by more than 10 times, recognising through his advocacy of projects like the Cross River Rail Project and Moreton Bay Regional Rail Link, first promised in 1895, delivered by the Rudd Labor government, under construction right now. Kevin also continued to advocate for his local community as an airport-affected seat. I certainly related to Kevin's advocacy there. I'm very proud that I got to serve as Deputy Prime Minister to Kevin when he returned to the Prime Ministership earlier this year. Something that doesn't get taken away. I probably regret the fact that Kevin called me Albo at that first press conference, and something that now everyone calls me Albo. It used to be just my friends. But Kevin's leadership during that difficult time was quite extraordinary, taking on the leadership of a party that had been through a very difficult and turbulent time, preparing for an election campaign, and then campaigning right around the country with energy and vigour in a campaign in which the odds were always against us. I said to Kevin, to repeat a private conversation, I don't do that, I said to Kevin at one stage on the day, yeah, I don't know why you've just made this decision. It's not in your interest. He could have retired, having led Labor to victory in 2007. 2010 changed, so no one could have questioned what the outcomes might have been in 2010. Retired as an undefeated Prime Minister from the Australian electorate. He chose to put the party that he loves first, before his own interests and the interests of his family. And I thank him for that, because Labor is competitive. Finally, I thank him for what he's done for our party. The democratic reforms that he championed in having a leadership ballot of the party where more than 30,000 people got to vote in that democratic election. I believe a process that showed that you can have a democratic election without rancour, and that you can emerge stronger as an organisation if people actually accept processes and participate in them with goodwill. We emerged after a significant election loss with a party that is more united, stronger and more cohesive than it would have been if that reform was not put in place under Kevin Rudd's leadership. And it must be, as Kevin said, the first step. We also need to democratise and give greater direct participation. I think it's a way forward, not just for Labor but for all political parties. The world has changed and people demand a direct say. Not just sitting in halls is a thing of the past, and I intend to continue to champion an extension of Kevin's democratic reforms that he has begun. He leaves the parliament with my best wishes and my enduring friendship. I also extend my thanks to Therese and other members of Kevin's family for their contribution to the cause of Labor. Also to their contribution to the cause of our great nation, Australia. Our families give up an enormous amount to represent for decisions that we make to be in this place. And the sort of scrutiny that occurs of them, sometimes most unfair, is something that comes with the job. But for Kevin, who has given so much for Australia up to this point, I look forward to watching his contribution outside of the parliament on issues which he's indicated: Indigenous welfare, homelessness, organ donation and other issues that I have no doubt that Kevin will take up with passion and commitment, and I pay tribute to him and honour him here tonight.
I call the Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't wish to detain the House at great length tonight, but I do think it's appropriate as Leader of the House that I say a few words about the retirement of the member for Griffith. Proverbs has a statement in it that to those whom much is given, much is expected. The member for Griffith is a highly intelligent individual, a tremendous communicator, a man of great passion and ability, and he could have turned all of those talents to any kind of path in life. He could have been a very successful CEO of a business and earned tremendous amounts of money. He could have been a tremendous academic in one of Australia's many tremendous institutions. But he chose to pursue public life because for him, like I hope for all of us in this chamber, Parliament is the highest form of public service. There are so many things a person of Kevin Rudd's talents could have done, and yet he put his family through and himself through what we all know is a very tough life. I am the father of 4 children, still happily married, only after 19 years, unlike the 32 years of Kevin and Therese, but we all know the extraordinary sacrifices that families make in this place to support their fathers, their husbands, their wives, their partners, to pursue public service. It is in so many respects a very selfish life, but in so many respects it's a selfless life as well. And so it's important to pay tribute tonight in a public way to a person who rose to the highest office in the land of the 13th biggest economy in the world, a very significant country, not just in our region but in the world. To become leader of a great party, whether it is the Liberal Party or the Labor Party, is a tremendous achievement. To lead that party to victory, to secure the confidence of the Australian people, is a crowning glory. Nobody can ever take that away from the member for Griffith. And while I have called him all sorts of names over the years in this place, some of them more memorable than others, as part of the cut and thrust of this chamber, on a personal basis, I've never had a crossword with the member for Griffith. And I will reveal a secret tonight, now that he's retiring. He and I were once both members of the same prayer group in this place. And 13 years ago, when my twins were born, after a very difficult pregnancy and a long period of time getting there, the member for Griffith could not have been more supportive for me as a human being. So his words tonight when he said, "Take care of each other," in spite of the argy-bargy that goes on in this place, we are all human beings, and I'm so pleased to be able to give Kevin Rudd back to his beautiful family and his wife, and I'm sure that he has decades ahead of a contribution to public life in one respect or another, but also putting his family first into the future.
I call the member for McMahon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are in this House privileged from time to time to be part of history, and tonight the member for Griffith has once again shared that privilege with us. My proudest moment as a Member of Parliament was sitting where the member for Ryan is currently sitting some years ago as Kevin Rudd delivered the apology to Australia's Indigenous people. The proudest moment I think many of us, I say without a hint of partisanship on this side of the House, have felt and are likely to feel. It has been commented by members opposite that Kevin Rudd defeated who those honourable members think is the best Prime Minister in Australia's history. We would beg to differ. But we would say this: he defeated the most formidable Conservative campaigner in Australia's history, and that is no mean feat. And in delivering that election victory to our side of politics, he enabled many people on this side of politics to do many good things. The apology has been mentioned. The abolition of what we would say then and now was a very unfair set of arrangements through work choices. was achieved because of that election victory. And in good time, education reform and the establishment of an enduring social reform in the National Disability Scheme, disability care, working with his colleagues on this side of the House for those reforms which will stand the test of time. Now, in 2007, Madam Speaker, those of us on this side of the House who were here in opposition were not convinced we were going to win that election. History has a habit of looking inevitable in retrospect. There was nothing inevitable about that victory, just as there was nothing inevitable about the Prime Minister's victory in this election. History is made by those of us who participate in it. And the Labor Party asked the member for Griffith, Kevin, to take the leadership and therefore deliver that victory over Australia's most formidable campaigner, certainly of the post-war era. I associate myself with the remarks of all. We are often critical of the Prime Minister. Can I say I think the Prime Minister just gave the best speech he has ever given in this House. His gracious remarks towards the member for Griffith were well meant and well received. Being Prime Minister is, as has been mentioned, an enormous honour, but it is also an enormous sacrifice, particularly as the member for GRAYNDLER mentioned. The party called upon Kevin to return to the leadership earlier this year. It was not a call that was necessarily in his best interest to accept. He could have sat back and declined the call. He knew when he took the Prime Ministership that the odds were long. He knew when he took the Labor Party's leadership that it would well end in defeat, most likely would. However, he saw it as his responsibility to take the leadership, and he has much to be proud of, as does Julia Gillard, as does everybody who served as ministers and supporters of the previous government. Madam Speaker, I'm very proud to regard myself as a friend of Kevin, F-O-K. It's quite a ride being a friend of Kevin. He does provide thrills and spills. But it's always an honour, as it has been tonight. In what I regard as the finest political autobiography I've been able to read, Dennis Healy's autobiography, The Time of My Life, he writes about being regarded as the greatest Prime Minister Britain never had, and he reflects on that. And he writes that it would have been better to be Prime Minister than not be, because of the opportunity to contribute. And he's right about that, of course, from the member for Griffith's point of view. It was better that he became Prime Minister because he had the chance to do much good for his nation, much good for his party, and his party reforms will endure just as his national reforms will endure. The process we've just gone through, both the member for Maribyrnong and the member for GRAYNDLER would agree was a good one. The member for Maribyrnong might agree a little more strongly, but they would both agree that it's a good one. And I believe in time it will infect other political parties, and Australia's body politic will be all the better for it. I also believe the member for Griffith, yet as a relatively young man, has much to contribute to Australia and the world. He will do so in another form, in different ways, but his contribution is still there to be made and for all to see. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I give the call to the honourable member for Wentworth.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is indeed a momentous day. The resignation of a former Prime Minister from the Parliament in the House is a day that all of us will remember. We're all here, Kevin. We'll all remember being here when you resigned from this Parliament. A Parliament in which, as the Prime Minister has said, you have had a leading and often decisive role for so many years. You have been a leader in Australia, a leader of Australia, a formidable leader, the leader of the Labor Party that defeated John Howard in an election campaign that all of us who participated in it remember was in effect a presidential campaign for you. All of my colleagues who campaigned in that election, remember, we'd go from one electorate to another. There'd be one or two corflutes of the Labor candidate and then hundreds of Kevin Rudd. It was a presidential campaign. It was Kevin Rudd's victory in 2007. And when you became Prime Minister, there were quite a few things that we disagreed about, as you know. But your apology to the stolen generation is, as the Prime Minister tonight has said, one of those signal moments, one of those moments when a leader is able, with his imagination, to capture the tenor of the times and make a mark in history, a mark that will never be erased. All of your other achievements, about which we have differing views, of course, that your colleagues in the Labor Party have spoken so warmly tonight, the global financial crisis, the national broadband network and others, all of those will pass into forgetfulness. But that apology to the stolen generation will never be forgotten. It is just one of those marks not in the sand of history, to be blown away or washed away by time, but that is carved into the granite, into the bedrock of history, and that is your achievement. When I was the Leader of the Opposition, you were a formidable and ferocious opponent, and indeed an unforgiving one. And we differed on a number of occasions. We've still occasionally have gentle arguments about your response to the global financial crisis, where I still believe that, with the benefit of hindsight, you could have spent less and perhaps spent it more wisely. But these are details for tonight. What I want to speak about tonight is Kevin Rudd, the man. All of us in politics suffer enjoy great highs and often suffer great lows and setbacks. And I will never forget the day that you gave your press conference following your removal as Leader of the Labor Party by your colleagues. It is etched in my memory. It was one of the cruelest moments I've ever witnessed. I mean, I had lost the leadership of my own party, but, frankly, in a dispute about policy. The current Prime Minister, the Prime Minister today, Member for Warringah, and I, and varying members of the party, had a difference about policy, and it was resolved in a ballot. And it was well flagged, and we all knew we were bringing it to a head. It was something we had to resolve. It was, if you like, a very fair fight. The betrayal of you as leader of your party was one of the most shocking events I've ever witnessed, and I would think, Madam Speaker, any of us have ever witnessed in politics. The scale of it, the idea that the man that had won in this presidential campaign an election against John Howard was then going to be disposed of, discarded, like another course on a Lazy Susan in a Vietnamese restaurant. The cruelty of it was extraordinary. And I remember watching your wife, Therese Rain, standing there as the political wives and husbands so often are, the mute spectator to the cruelty inflicted on their husband. As the Prime Minister has often said, and it is one of the truest things you've ever said, Prime Minister, all of us here are volunteers. Our spouses and families are conscripts. And the way your family stood by you is something that also will never be forgotten. But your resilience, your determination, derided by so many of your colleagues and by people in the media and by people on our side as well, but your resilience and your determination was, again, an example to all of us. And the member, the member for Griffith was kind enough to refer to me as his friend, and I'm touched by that. Kevin, I really am. After you lost, we didn't have any relationship when I was Leader of the Opposition and you were Prime Minister, beyond the antagonistic one in this chamber. But after you lost the leadership, I did get to know you a lot better. Initially, I was very worried about you because I'd known how low I had sunk in a much less difficult loss of leadership, a much less difficult loss of leadership. I was very worried about you. And as I got to know you, I realised what an extraordinarily tough individual you are. Your determination is unequalled by anyone I've worked with in politics. I don't know anyone that is just so filled with energy and determination and a preparedness to overcome any setback. And that is a triumph of the human spirit. Even if we disagree about one policy or another, that is an extraordinary triumph of the human spirit, that you could overcome those setbacks, that betrayal that would have crushed so many other people. So, together with my colleagues, and indeed with yours, I salute you tonight. I thank you for your service to the people of Australia and to this Parliament. I wish you a long and happy life with Therese and your family, and as a fellow grandfather, I'm sure that you'll have a lot of wonderful time with your grandchild and indeed the many more grandchildren that are to come. Thank you very much, Kevin Rudd, for your service to Australia.
I call the Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, a number of speakers on both sides of the chamber have spoken tonight about how they remember so vividly where they were when that historic apology was made to our nation's Indigenous Australians. And of course I remember it very vividly too. But one of the elements that I remember most vividly is the fact that the Prime Minister went to see Nana Fijo before that apology and spoke to her about her experiences, her life, what it had meant being taken from her family at such a young age, what she had missed of her culture and her family. And the reason I raise this, Madam Speaker, is because in my experience of working with the Prime Minister on the issues of homelessness, that was so typical of his approach, to speak, of course, to the people who were working in the area of homelessness, but most particularly to sit and speak and, most importantly, to listen to those Australians who were experiencing homelessness. And before the 2007 election, before we made any announcement about homelessness policy, we went together to the Mission Australia homelessness facility in Surrey Hills. And with no media present, just the then Leader of the Opposition and I, we sat there for several hours talking to those men and some women, mostly men, about their lives, how had they become homeless, what had happened in their families, what had happened in their backgrounds, and how could we change things so that not only would they have a roof over their head for the night, but that they could leave homelessness behind, they could find a permanent home. And that personal discussion and investigation that the then Leader of the Opposition brought with him into attacking and addressing the issue of homelessness was very important. But the other thing I noticed then, and I think it was typical of his time as Prime Minister, was that as well as those that deep understanding of the personal stories connected to the issues that he was addressing, he spoke to every expert, he read every piece of work, he asked every question, he investigated every issue as deeply as he possibly could. I think colleagues will remember that we started to call it Kevidence because it was the most evidence-based approach to these large questions of public policy that we'd ever had in Australia, the most intellectual approach. And I saw that again most recently when the Prime Minister went to see some amazing biomedical research facilities in Queensland, in Brisbane, facilities that he had supported the funding of. The depth of understanding that he had and the questions that he asked of those biomedical researchers, I know, surprised the scientists on the day. The policy lessons that he drew from those conversations and what he saw firsthand, of course, informed the decisions that we made. And, Madam Speaker, I'll conclude by saying this. I think we have seldom had a Prime Minister of such prodigious intellect, such a wide variety of interests and such a capacity to translate those personal stories and that evidence from so many different experts into policies that have made our nation a better place. Thank you.
Before I give the call to the Manager of Opposition Business, I'd just like to make a few remarks of my own. The member for Griffith is a man who is out of the ordinary. And sitting in this chamber tonight, and as you all listened, he's evoked an amazing reaction. By laying your own emotions bare, you have seen that followed by others who've spoken. I first came to know you, Kevin, on the television, when I used to fill in for Joe when he couldn't make it and we'd spar a bit. And then we came to know each other better. And I'd had the delight of meeting your grandchild, and I've talked about mine. There are many policy areas which will go on being debated and being furiously in disagreement for years to come. But there is something about an emotional tie, and you have sparked something tonight by speaking to the Parliament in the way that you did. You sparked an empathy across the chamber, something that says that the human side of those of us who come and seek to serve our nation in this place where only just over 1,000 people in the entire history of the Commonwealth Parliament have served, and knowing the honour that it is to serve. In the concept of serving the nation, there is no higher aspiration. And in your candid bearing of your emotions, indeed part of your soul, you have evoked that spirit that I think binds the Parliament, whereas the fast and furious politics that divide us so often are the reality of the body politic, and yet to see that humanity and to see the response to the humanity, I think, has given us another dimension tonight. Kevin, enjoy your next life and be returned to the bosom of your family, and enjoy. I call the Manager of Opposition Business.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. There are a large number of members of Parliament who would like to provide the gift to Kevin's family of some gentler words than those he referred to. And with that in mind, I ask leave of the House to move a resolution to refer further statements on indulgence to the Federation Chamber.
Could you formally move? Is leave granted?
Leave is granted, of course, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I move that further statements on indulgence on the resignation from the House of the member for Griffiths, former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, be referred to the Federation Chamber.
Is the motion seconded?
I second the motion.
All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes